I wanted to be like
Because then your Seiko's your Grail, your Grand Seiko was your Grail. It's just on and on and on.
Yeah. Is it okay to have more than one Grail in a collection? How many Grails should one have?
Of course.
Hi guys, I'm Patrick.
I'm Adam.
And this is Clock,
Stock,
and Barrel. Coming at you with a consumer's opinion on everything watch related. And today we have another installment of the Beginner's Guide. Today we're going to tackle collecting from a philosophical standpoint. And this is literally, again, like I said, this is a opinion. This is an opinion channel. And this is just our opinions on collecting. So obviously, you know, how I collect, my philosophies on collecting are a little bit different than Adam's. But what I hope to share with you guys today is, through our philosophy, is how we buy and why we buy what we buy in our collection. So this is going to be everything from, you know, collection sizes, whether it's themed, and the type of additions we put into our collections. And I'm in constant flux. Like, I'll have people message me about watches I'm selling, and or just message us on the channel here and say like, oh, what happened to your Aura 65, or what happened to this and that. You know, my collection habits change just based on where I am currently in life. And right now, I'm constantly switching watches because I need to get new content for the show, first and foremost, and two, my taste change, and that's okay. So right now, there's only so many constants in my collection, and I guess I'll start with some of my philosophies on watches. I know we both have different collection size ideas, but for me, I initially thought, you know, I should have 7 watches in my collection because there's 7 days in the week, and my rotation could look like, you know, 1 watch a day. And that's a good size, right? But even that seemed a little out of hand. And recently, my girlfriend bought me a watch box that held 6 watches, and I'm like, that looks like the perfect size for me. And at a certain point, I had, you know, way more than 6 watches, but I never found myself wearing or giving those watches enough attention or enough appreciation. And these things cost money, and I'm just gonna have, you know, equity in a watch that's just sitting there.
Yeah.
And I can't do that to myself. You know, I'm not in a financial place where I can just have thousands of dollars in watches sitting around. So 6 was the perfect limit for me. And the next step I took was reducing the cost of my watches to under $1,000. Because I was, again, starting to get out of hand. I'm looking at things that are much, much, much more expensive in range. And what's funny is, like, between different meetups we've gone to, different venues that have showcase watches, and just owning different watches in different price ranges, $1,000's a good cap. You can get a really great watch for under $1,000. So that's one of my philosophies, and I'm going to highlight obviously a few watches today. But within my 6, right now I currently have 5 watches, and of course, you know, I've got other watches, you know, like cheaper digital watches or watches I've been gifted that I don't include in the 6 because those are things that were sort of out of hand for me. One of my 6 is a gift, but it's an Omega F300 that I really love and adore. I don't have it in front of me today. But one of the newest additions to my collection is this Raymond Weil, and you might have seen it in an unboxing on the channel, and I'll leave a card for that. But this is definitely a keeper for me. I never thought I'd say that. But I've purchased watches for the purposes of reselling them, because I sort of know what to look for, and we're probably going to do a video on that, on like, sort of like a beginner's guide to buying. We're not there yet, though. I'd love to share my thoughts on buying. But I found this watch on eBay. I got it, I'll say, well under $400. And for some people, that's too expensive. For me, that was just the right price, particularly for how unique it is. But I bought this Raymond Weil. It's actually the cheapest watch in my collection, and has literally gotten the most wrist time for me. It's an absolutely gorgeous, unique chronograph. It utilizes the Value 7750. It has the date window at 3 o'clock and 3 subdials. The bottom subdial tracks hours and 30-minute increments. The top is a 30-minute gauge, and that left subdial is the seconds. And what's cool about it, and what I love about this watch, is the overall aesthetic, and obviously the function of that chronograph. These pushers have such a good feel to them. I love how when the pushers are aligned at 0, the 60 sub-second hand is easy to see off to the side. And I purchased this watch, one, because it has a unique aesthetic. There's not another case that looks like this, not in my experience. I've never seen a watch that looks like this. I love the subdial arrangement and overall aesthetic of the watch. It's from a brand that people don't typically look into. That's another one of my philosophies. I sort of go out, you know, I get really, really obscure watches I find most often. You know, I've got some key watches in there, like the Omega Dynamic, people know about, but it's not really on the top of their buy guide. And what's good about that is you're getting a watch of a high grade case design, a high level quality in production, and obviously a really sharp movement in there. And I sort of got that with this watch at a really great price. And again, like overall, it's 40 millimeter case diameter. It's the perfect size and fit for me. I definitely see it in my collection. And you know, I keep, right now, it's looking like I have 3 chronographs out of my 6. I have a Tutima coming in that might be a keeper, might not be. But I have a good mix of like military watches to chronographs to sports watches. I also bought, I'm not going to share what the next watch is, but I bought a diver because right now I don't have a diver. Excuse me. My Oris TT1 is no longer in the collection. I realized that case size is probably the most important factor for me. I like to buy between 36 and 40 millimeters, and all my watches fit neatly within 36 to 40. And that's the perfect size for my wrist. I have 7¼ inch wrist, and this is one of my watches here. It's 38 and a half, and it's just the perfect size and dimension for my wrist. And again, this is the only watch that goes over $1,000 for me, and it's because it was a Grail. But yeah, no, I will probably harp on how I collected just a little bit more, but we can to toss the ball to Adam really quick. I know I feel like I've been talking nonstop, but those are some of how I collect and why I collect. I don't collect, you know, I'm not looking to add any more chronographs than I am dive watches. I just happen to enjoy that aesthetic for now, and that may change, but the key things for my collecting habits are buy under 1,000, only maintain 6. Because 6 I can do economically, and under 1,000 gets me the best quality of watch for a really good rate, you know? And this is automatic and quartz-based movements. And in one instance, an electronic watch with F300. Yeah. Those are my general thoughts and opinions on collecting so far. You have like a wide range.
I don't even know my own philosophy of collecting.
Yeah.
No, God, this
And you're
is
sort of the opposite end of the spectrum. We both buy on a whim. You know, don't get me wrong. I've purchased, you know, beyond the 6, but that's to help me evaluate like what I want to keep.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty impulsive with my buying. Honestly, I feel like the last year or so, a little over a year now probably, I've been buying and selling so many watches. I mean, you guys saw my list in the state of the collection probably, or if you didn't, in the last like 5-6 years, I've had like over 90 watches now.
Yeah.
And especially over the last year, I feel like I've just been going through every single range possible, trying as many watches possible.
He means price range there.
Yeah, price range. Just to get a feel for what every sort of brand and what every single tier has to offer. You know what I mean?
I'd love to highlight, because you guys know if you watch the channel,
Yeah.
Adam's had watches that are in the 4,000 to 6,000 range.
Yeah.
And he's had watches that are in the 100 to 500 range.
Yeah.
Everything. And you recently sold your Submariner. You guys might not know this.
Yeah.
But he sold his Submariner, one, because he picked up the Marine Master 300 again.
Yeah.
And that's sort of...
That was after, but still.
Yeah.
I was planning on it. So, this is like... So I'm kind of coming full circle.
Yeah.
You know?
As a collector.
It's always like the grass is always greener, you know? Like, you start off, you have a Seiko Sumo. I'm sure someone listening right now has a Seiko Sumo. And they're like, man, I would love a Submariner. You know what I mean? Or like, I would love an Omega Seamaster 300 coaxial. And like, I don't want to spoil this for you guys because it's great. But like, at the end of the day, in the day and age that we live in now, just like you said, there are so many incredible watches. I would go as far as to say under $2,000. Mm-hmm. Under $2,000.
That's the real sweet spot.
Really, yeah. I mean, like, because then you're talking your Oris, you're talking Zin, which their technology, you're talking Damasco, which they're, you know, Zin and Damasco is tegimented in ice hardened steel, or like next level.
The level of technology and engineering.
Exactly. Yeah. So you don't have to spend top dollar to get a great watch.
That's engineered well.
An incredible watch.
Yeah, that has a unique aesthetic. That has a good movement.
Yeah. So I've sort of gone full circle. You know, I've had a Panerai, I've had a GMT Rolex, Rolex. I've had a regular Submariner. I've had all these watches, and really the only I'm sort of settling down finally after this full year. So
having those experiences though has helped you shape your
all I wanted to do was try and experience everything over the last year. So that was my philosophy over the last year. But recently, I would say even over the last month or two, I've really started to dial back. I'm selling my IWC Engineer that you guys saw a video on, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, probably at this point. I'm selling this Hoyer that I really wanted to experience.
We haven't talked about that on the show. This is the 35mm chassis.
So we probably won't talk about this just because there's not too much to say besides it's a really great reissue with a Lamania movement.
That was done up in the 90s.
Yeah, it's a great watch. It's just a little too small, and I never wear it because of that, you know?
Yeah.
And it's a lot of money also. It's like about $2,000 to have tied up in this Hoyer reissue, which is a phenomenal watch. You guys can see the beautiful patina already forming and everything. But, that's neither here nor there. But my point is I'm sort of coming back to the quote-unquote cheaper watches. I would say my core expensive keepers right now are my 1992 Speedmaster, which is just incredible. Like I can't say enough about that watch. I will always have that watch. It's so versatile on different leathers. So that one, my 36mm Explorer, mostly because it was my first Rolex ever, and it was a birth year Rolex.
Yeah.
And I mean, the 36mm Explorer is just such a classic, such a classic Rolex to have. So
size too.
I have that. That's getting serviced right now, actually, currently.
Really?
Yeah, I'll always have that. And then my Nomos, which was a graduation gift, right? But that's we'll kind of toss that out since that was a gift. So from watches from my own personal purchases over the last year, the Speedy and the Explorer are really the two mainstays,
What do you feel?
And even though those were under $3,000, because I got head only for the Explorer, and then the Speedy was it was an older one, so
you
it
still have
wasn't
the
as
bracelet?
expensive. No, I actually sold the bracelet just because I literally never wear it, and that helped offset the cost a little bit, and provide funding for some other watches. But anyways, long story short is I've kind of repurchased a lot of watches too. Case in point, MM300.
Second time.
Second time.
Second time around for this guy too.
Yeah, second time for the Tuna. And I've kind of realized I'm sort of coming back to Seiko, where it all started.
Yeah.
I went through so many SKXs. So I went through Monsters. I went through Sumos. I even have the Shogun now, which I'm going to actually end up selling because I have the MM300, which is like one of my favorite watches of all time.
But it was a matter of just experiencing it.
But now that I finally sort of realized, the watches that I like, I'm coming back to them and repurchasing some of them and being like, okay, you guys are in here for the long haul now.
But
you know what I mean?
You enjoy the Marine Master more than the Submariner.
Oh, like 100%. Oh, yeah. Okay. Like, I mean, and it was a pre-ceramic sub. I don't know how I would feel about a ceramic sub, but there's something about the Marine Master. I mean, the bracelet, like we've said in previous videos, that's kind of up for debate. It's pin and collar, it's a little
aesthetically
janky.
Pleasing, but yeah.
It's not the best. But the head, I will say this 100%, the actual head of the Marine Master is on par. Finishing and just overall, like the bezel action, everything, all things included, is on par with any watch I've ever held.
Above that price range, certainly.
Yeah. Any Swiss watch over $5,000, any Swiss watch, we're not talking like Pateks or anything like that, but any dive watch, any Swiss dive watch, this is right up there. So there's something I will say I do really, really appreciate great value for money, and that's something that I look for with the watches that I have. Like I have the Oris on rubber right now. The Oris, I think, is probably
well over prestige.
Might be the best watch you can get used for under $1,000.
Oris,
the best.
What's great is like Oris depreciates, and I say great. But what's sad is that the Oris Aquis depreciates in value so heavily for some reason on the used market. And it is one of the better watches out there. And I think it's because it has an integrated bracelet. A lot of people dislike integrated bracelets because the versatility isn't as good. And the thing is, when I feel like it's in the price range where it's accessible, that a lot of people that do enjoy watches, that want a good watch, will buy the Aquis because of the lack of versatility with it and the customizability. I feel like people that buy within the $500 to maybe $2,000 range enjoy outfitting their watches with different straps or accessories. and it's just not doable with the Aquas, unfortunately. So you can find those in the used market for a very good price, like ceramic bezels, all that fun stuff. The newer Aquases for somewhere between $600 to $800 easily.
Yeah.
From what I've seen. And and that's just the thing. It's again that plays into my philosophy. Is like you can get a good watch under $1,000 easily. I mean, I bought this well under $1,000, and this is you might recognize this case. This is another watch I picked up recently, and it was featured in an unboxing. But you probably won't see a review for it because it's it's not something modern enough to warrant it. But this case design is featured in Breetlings, in the original Hoyers that were in production, in Chronosport analog digital watches, and more recently, this case design is being featured in CWC's lineup, the Cabot Watch Company's lineup, with their dive watch line, which is extremely derivative. Like it has this Monin case design. This is like a French case design with a dial face that's extremely similar to the Omega Seamaster 300. Mm-hmm. So, it's not. It's a great dive watch case. Is it worth being one of my 6? Probably not. It's something. It's like it's hard to tell what you'll like until you have it in hand. So, just
that's a very great point.
Going back to our first video. Try to get it in hand, or first beginner's guide video rather. Try to get it in hand first and experience the watch. Like Adam and I both, like we'll buy watches just to experience them, and sometimes we'll lose money in the process, but it's worth it. Because like going to a dealer and having it in hand for like a few minutes isn't enough. You need to live with the watch. Yeah, you honestly do.
But even at a dealer, sometimes it works out. Like I'll give you guys a quick example. The new sector dial JLCs, the General Colts. I went to see them on Madison Ave in New York. It was Madison Watch Week or something like that a couple weeks ago. Mm-hmm. And they're incredible, just so you guys know. Absolutely incredible. But I also, just for fun, tried on a JLC ultra thin master control, the 39 millimeter one.
Yeah.
And the ultra thin moon phase has been like kind of a grail of mine, or was a grail of mine for the longest time. And I had it on the wrist in person, and it just didn't really do it for me. Huh. So that's a perfect example of seeing something in person. The only problem with that is sometimes with these obscure brands, like if you want to buy a Zen, you can't just walk anywhere and get a Zen. You might actually have to buy one, get a great deal on it so that you won't lose any money, so that you can flip it. But sometimes you have to buy the watch, if you really, really love it and want to see it in person.
Yeah.
You don't have any other choice.
And if you're watching this video, I know this is touted as the beginner's guide, but we're mentioning some brands that a lot of beginners have probably never heard of.
Right.
I highly recommend you watch some of our other content if you're interested in expanding your knowledge of watches, and there's plenty of other YouTubers out there and blogs that discuss watches. If there's a particular brand you're interested in, do your research, do your due diligence, and see where how the watches are made.
Right.
The cost, that value proposition Adam was talking about. I feel like that's important. A philosophy to collecting. Like, I bought this Raymond Weil for $350. Really, really good deal on a watch that's utilizing a fantastic movement. It's sort of a workhorse chronographic movement. Has a unique case aesthetic and dial aesthetic. You're not gonna find this anywhere else, and that's why I bought it. I sort of like these obscure pieces. Plus, it's been very accurate, and it's from a company that, to me, is very respectable. It's still privately owned. They've been in the business for a little over 60 years now. And they do a great job. I mean, at least with these older models, Raymond Weil now, I can't speak to the state of their collection, but when this was produced, it's a phenomenal watch.
Yeah.
It's got a good heft to it. It's everything I like in a watch. So, again, for me, when I collect, try to keep it under $1,000 per watch, because I genuinely feel you can get a great watch for that price range. And then again, keep it to 6, just because for me, it's economically viable. Like, I can have 6 watches that are $1,000 each and get away with it comfortably. But even then, I try to spend well under $1,000. It's like that value prop. Like, I'm more interested in buying a watch. I'm more interested in getting a great watch at a good price than I am getting a great brand at a good price. Does that make sense at all?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to, like, oh man, I just secured this Rolex for $4,000. What a good deal. that doesn't really matter to me as much as like saying, you know, this Raymond Wow was one of the coolest finds for me because I feel like I got a really great package for a really great price. You know, even more thrilling than when I got this Grand Seiko. And I got this Grand Seiko at a really good price, but it was up there. It was definitely up there. It was one of the only watches I'll ever spend over $1,000 for. And the cost of repairs and everything included, if you watched our video on buying from the gray market, this was about $2,500. And you can see this particular model of Grand Seiko without the box or without all of its original content for way more. So that was really cool. But,
yeah. So even me, like with this watch roll in front of us, there's 4 slots. Like my ultimate goal was to just have 4
main
keepers,
watches.
right?
Yeah.
That's impossible because even let's say I tuck my Nomos into here in this kind of like this little lip right here, right? And then I have Speedy, Explorer, MM300. Then I got the Tuna, but then I still have a Zimbei Turtle coming in, and I would have the Stoa, right? So that's already, what is that, 7 right there?
7.
So I think 7's a good number, you know, because like 7's a number where you kind of feel like you have control over your collection.
You get diversity,
and you get diversity, and you don't have a watch that's sitting on the shelf for months and months and months at a time. Which that's the biggest thing is I hate having a huge collection because I'll have some watches. Like, to be honest, even though this is an incredible watch, this Hoyer has been sitting in a safe for weeks and weeks. I've worn it. I wore it a couple times when I first got it, and haven't been wearing it. So for me, I have to actually want to wear the watch to consider it something that would be a keeper. So I'm literally actively selling like something like 6 watches right now. Or after this video, I'll be selling like 6 watches. So
I mean, it's possible to have a collection above 6 or 7.
Oh, absolutely. 30 if you want, but
in an ideal world, like the watch you buy should scream out at you. You should want to wear it every day, and you should have that same feeling for all the watches in your collection. And if there's a point where you feel like the watch doesn't have that sort of feel, you know, it doesn't motivate you to wear it, like this Hoyer. It's a great watch. Then you know maybe it's not worth having in your collection. Just don't hoard. I suppose is something important to note as well, because you know this is sort of a different video entirely. But I see people with collections of multiples, like 30 different Seikos, and they've got like every color of the Seiko 5. And if that's your thing, if you're trying to like get every single number, every single model in their lineup, that's one thing.
Just like people have G-Shock collections, you know?
Yeah.
And like that one time I was kind of even mentioning, I was thinking about keeping that core, 6, 7 watches that I have and creating a sub-collection of like Fleegers, for example. This is something I've been toying with for a while, is having a sub-collection of having Stoa, the big 5, right? Stoa, Laco, Languisson, Vempe, and IWC, I guess, is the one I'm missing. I was thinking about sort of slowly building and having one Flieger from each of those brands, ultimately ending in getting one of the original 55mm BUR watches, So I'm still sort of toying with an idea of having some type of sub-collection, but for now, my main focus is trying to thin my watches out.
Watches you...
focus on the 6, or I guess the 7 that I want to be wearing, the most. And the other thing too is not just kind of that, is creating memories with watches.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if you go on let's say you go on a cruise, or let's say you go to the Florida Keys or something like that, right? Or even if you go to Europe or something, and you wear that watch, right? You kind of slowly start to bring up these memories, and it has memories, and it has a lot of sentimental value.
Yeah, the scarification or the aging.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of a shame to sort of be cycling through all these watches and not being able to create any lasting memories with them, right? Because this is something that's on your wrist 24/7 pretty much.
Yeah. And that's sort of one of the last philosophies I'd like to share in this particular video, because I know it's running on, and I do hope you're gathering from this if you're new to collecting. And again, if you've been collecting for a while, please share your thoughts in the comments. But I hear a lot of people, and it's been interesting when I'm setting up these New York Minute episodes for you guys, or I'm just talking with collectors, how they incorporate watches in their collection that they don't personally own, that are their fathers, or that are their grandfathers, or that are their mothers. You know what I mean? Like something like in our last video, the Brew Watch New York Minute, he was talking about his collection, and this is true for Carpenter as well, but he was talking about how he had this many watches in his collection, but that was incorporating watches that his father personally owned. And I love hearing people discuss their collections in relation to their family. You know what I mean? Like, you know, the watches of their house name are his watches too. Do you know what I mean? Like, and that's such an interesting concept because when I think about my Grand Seiko, it's my Grand Seiko. You know, and I don't think of my father's watches as my watches necessarily. Yeah. But that is something to consider as well. Like the kind of memories that this watch inhabits through its scarification and through the times you've spent with it, that you're going to be able to pass down, and that's a part of your own heritage, you know, let alone the watch's heritage. Right. But, you know, whatever you wear does take on a life of its own through time. Yeah. And I think that's a beautiful thing too. So watches that, again, that scream out to you that you want to wear every day are the perfect watches because you're going to live with those things and you're going to develop these memories and you're going to be able to pass that down, hopefully, and it will be appreciated. But like the serious watch collectors, I love how they talk about familial tie with their watches because that's part of collecting that I haven't really gotten into yet because I never hold on to a watch too long. But you know, I just took this watch out on my 5-year anniversary with Allison, my girlfriend, and we went to North Carolina. I had a great time. I was swimming with this. It was blasted by sand, and it was in the water the whole time, and I was nervous as hell. And I enjoyed every moment of it. You know what I mean? And I was looking down. I'm like,
yeah, just like on my Explorer, I went on Vespas, I went snorkeling, I went swimming, all in the Bahamas. And like I'm always gonna remember that with that Explorer, you know. So even just that one memory alone, it's almost like that makes that my Explorer keeper. Let alone the fact that it was my first Rolex and my birth year, like you know.
So you know, hold on to the watches that you relate to the most, that you enjoy the most, and try to build those memories. Because that's sort of key. And I feel like a large collection is a bad thing, but it's not necessarily what I'm going for. And if you have a large collection, please let us know your philosophy on that collection or why you do that. And what I was trying to hint at earlier with, you know, the person who collected all those Seiko 5s is, you know, which ones do you wear and which ones do you enjoy? If you're buying them from a collector standpoint, that's one thing. But if you're, you know, a wearer, if you enjoy these timepieces out occasionally, that's a separate thing. I think at that point, maybe you should have 2 divers in your collection. Right. You know, like a black one and a blue one, or a black one and a white one, whatever suits your taste. Yeah. Just for some diversity, but you don't necessarily need 50 of the same watch. Right. I don't think, unless you are a collector. That's separate from someone who wears watches. I think there are collectors and then there are enthusiasts, people that like to wear their watch. Agreed. But yeah, those are our thoughts on collecting. Those are some of our philosophies, and I think the key highlights were, at least for me, you know, under 1,000 and have a minimal size, because this way you can appreciate your watches and build more memories with them. Yeah. And you know, with Adam, it just buy and try. Yeah. Really though, and I'm starting to do the same thing now. I'm just buying more and trying more, because this way I can learn what I like.
And now I'm finally settling down after all that.
And you're going back, which is so funny.
Rebuys and sort of just being like,
and you got those grails, and you experienced those grails, and they just didn't. They either lived up to expectations, like your Speedmaster, or they didn't, such as the Submariner. Yeah. And you realize there was just something better that you had, and that's a good thing, and that's a really good thing. Yeah. So anyway, guys, if you like this video, feel free to hit that like button. If you disliked it, that is okay too. Please, I'd love to start a conversation going in the comments box. So if you have, you know, any philosophies on collecting you'd like to share, or how you collect, or how much you like to spend on a watch, let us know. Any price range, guys, you know, if you guys only buy $50 to $200, I'd love to know what you're getting. Or if you buy like in the multiple thousands, like 5-figure watches, like let me know how you collect, because there's some really unique watches in the, you know, like the 20,000 and up range that I've never really considered, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on those. And hit the subscribe button. If you like this content, you like what we're doing here, hit the subscribe button. It helps us out the most. And when you share these videos, that also helps too. So thank you guys for joining us. Hope to see you in the next one.
See you guys.